if you're selling real estate, you have to ask your clients, not what do you want in terms of bedrooms and bathrooms and whatever. You have to ask them, how do you want to feel when you wake up in your home? What do you see yourself? And then when you're out touring these properties, the best buying signals is when the client takes over. I can see our desk here. I can see our kids playing in the backyard here. We should put a swing set over there. All of that. They're seeing something. And it's not about desks and swing sets and all of that. It's about these signals of I'm pointing towards something that makes me feel joy or happiness or fulfillment. And if I can see myself there, and the real estate agent does their job, learns the story of the buyer, and can help create a better ending, an upgraded ending, now you're in a really beautiful sales situation where it's not win-lose sales. That no one's about that.
If you're a real estate agent earning $200,000 a year and you want to grow your passive income, this show is for you. Learn secrets other agents use and hear from experts in our field who will guide you on your journey to investing in assets like apartment communities so you can take your commissions and turn them into cash flow. Here's your host, Randal. Let's dive in.
All right, guys, welcome back. Today's guest is Marianne Hickman. I love the show because it scratches my itch in the sense of public speaking, getting on stages and starting that process. And so she's a coach. She is a public speaking coach. She's been speaking on stages for years and years and years, has a ton of experience doing that. And she has a program where she teaches people how to get on stage and convert from the stage and make sales from the stage. So not only that, she has a podcast. And so I was going back and listening to some of the archives of her podcast, and some of the guests that she's had on are incredible and phenomenal. So if you want to find those shows, it's Marianne Hickman show. And again, we talk about storytelling, how to tell a story, the components of the story. She breaks it down. And then if you stick through to the end, she's giving something away. So you know you're going to get something out of the show. Please go on, rate and review. It helps me bring on awesome guests, just like Marianne. I had a great time interviewing her, talking to her, and I hope you enjoy the show. As always, we have crowdfund going right now. We're raising capital to deploy and buy single-family properties in the Texas market that we then owner finance. So we create notes, and we're offering a 10% preferred return to investors coming in, investing in that, backed by single-family real estate in the Texas market. So if you want to learn more about that, just jump on. It's in the show notes, and you can click the link and go straight through to how you can invest there. Let's jump into the show. Here we go. Marianne, it is awesome to have you on the show. I love the energy that we have just already talking just before we started going live. So welcome to the show. I'm excited to talk to you and learn about what you're working on. First,
thank you so much for having me on. I just want to say thank you, Randall. This is a fun connection. I love meeting people through podcasts, by the way.
Same.
It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, it's great. It's an awesome medium. I love having the conversations. It's the reason to keep doing it. I want to start with storytelling specifically. I have seen guys who have not had any kind of following. They've just been trying certain things. Maybe they're doing ClickFunnels and they're working on something, but then when they hit a story that resonates, they explode. Like I've seen it happen. I've watched it happen. And so I realize how important storytelling is, not just in one-on-one interactions with either a client or friends or whoever it is, but in business in general as well. So I wonder if you could talk high level about the importance of storytelling just for the audience, and then we'll dive into a little bit deeper and more specific.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure that you're familiar with the name Jimmy Rex, right?
Jimmy, I'm embarrassed to say no.
Oh, if not soon, you will. Now your algorithm knows to look for him. If your phone is nearby, it's gonna
Jimmy.
Jimmy's a cool dude. He's actually the #1 real estate agent in Utah. He sold the biggest, most expensive private property. I think it was down in Springville, if I understand correctly. But he's been a real estate agent for a very, very, very long time, very successful in that. But his business really exploded when he started telling stories and when he started mentoring. And now Jimmy's, some people would not know Jimmy as a real estate agent, actually, because he's got this whole community and he's building a men's training system. He's a really incredible dude. And he published his book not long ago. It's called Be One. And it's all about how to be the man, not look up to the man, just be one, right? Be an incredible dude. And I'm in his book right now. I'm in the first 30 pages of it. And it's all storytelling. It's all about summiting Mount Kilimanjaro, and it's all about doing it with a man who only had one leg and getting them to the top. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it because the synopsis of the story is what we learn. What do we learn about pushing ourselves? What do we learn about business? What do we learn about anything? So when I train speakers, I train people in real estate, I train people in coaching, I train people who are holistic remedy healers, and anyone who has a business of their own grows their business exponentially, and that's not hyperbole, exponentially, because they appear on stage and they're able to tell their story, and not just tell the story because anyone can read a news article, but really get into the storytelling part of it. That means mixing up the sequence, not necessarily following the chronology of the story. And then most importantly, teaching the lesson. So when I tell my story about when I was broken on 4 different forms of welfare and then I go to 6 figures, people are on the edge of their seats because the story is what connects us to our audience. And if you want to create movement, a movement, emotion, motion, and that eventually turns into revenue in a very authentic way. I'm not really interested in doing it in a salesy, gross, manipulative kind of way. But people buy when they feel something, and that's what storytelling does. I always refer to this commercial that Chanel produced. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but this commercial, I looked it up, cost $33 million to make, and it's a minute-long commercial, right? And it's crazy because in the commercial, there's no words. You don't even see the product. It's just this beautiful couple dancing on the moon and all their fancy clothes and stuff. And at the very end, they're like, Chanel #5. But they're not selling perfume.
Yeah.
They're selling romance. They're selling intrigue. They're selling sensuality, all of these things. And that's what we want as consumers. We want to feel something. And that's what storytelling does.
Love that. Very solid. Okay. Now, more questions, right? So
Let's do it.
how as a real estate professional, what are you selling, right? So like, how do you pinpoint what you're trying to sell? Are you selling the desire to live in an upscale home? Are you selling the intrigue of that? Like, how do you frame that when you start talking about telling your story as a real estate professional?
So I'll go back to an actual story, actually. So
Yeah.
this isn't a piece of real estate, but I was actually out wedding dress shopping. My husband and I got married in 2020, if you can believe that, deep in the time of COVID, right? And
It happens still. Yeah.
I got married and I went wedding dress shopping. And I'm one of those girls that's not necessarily all frilly. I hate changing clothes. So shopping for clothes is the worst thing ever. It's like car shopping.
Yeah.
So I'm trying on these dresses and finally I put one on and I'm like putting my hands on it, feeling how it fits. And the lady that is at the dress shop, she looks at me and she's like, that's the one, with all the confidence of a woman who's been selling wedding dresses for 40 years. And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, how can you tell? And she's like, well, I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm going to tell you what I call in our sales industry as buying signals. She said, whenever a bride puts on a dress and feels herself in it, like she's like, whoa, she feels the sleeves and feels the back. And she's like, that's a buying signal because she can see herself happy in that dress. She can picture herself on her wedding day. Now take that to real estate sales. If you're selling real estate, you have to ask your clients not what do you want in terms of bedrooms and bathrooms and whatever. You have to ask them, how do you want to feel when you wake up in your home? What do you see yourself? And then when you're out touring these properties, the best buying signals is when the client takes over. I can see our desk here. I can see our kids playing in the backyard here. We should put a swing set over there. All of that. They're seeing something. And it's not about desks and swing sets and all of that. It's about these signals of I'm pointing towards something that makes me feel joy or happiness or fulfillment. And if I can see myself there, and the real estate agent does their job, learns the story of the buyer, and can help create a better ending, an upgraded ending, now you're in a really beautiful sales situation where it's not win-lose sales. That no one's about that. If you are, people don't stay in that for long.
Yeah.
It's all about the real estate agent wins because they made the sale. The client wins because they get a house that they love, and the seller wins because they get to offload something they didn't want.
Very good. I love that you told the story. Again, we're in storytelling and you tell this awesome story just to encapsulate that point.
I can't help it.
No, it is. Stories tell, facts sell. No, stories sell, facts tell, is like
Exactly.
the old mantra. Well, I wanted to ask you again. So when you are thinking about framing or selling from the stage or just storytelling in general, are you typically telling your story in like a traditional hero's journey style, or is there another format that you follow that you can elaborate on?
Yeah, so I don't know what the hero's journey style might be. Honestly, I've created my own kind of framework, and maybe mine is similar to what is commonly known as the hero's journey.
Sure.
But what's crazy, if you watch speakers like Tony Robbins, the Muscle, you watch any speaker, Mel Robbins, anyone that you can put your finger on, you can kind of pick up a pattern. So the way I teach it is there is actually a 10-step formula for creating a story, telling about the content, teaching a lesson, and then closing from stage. And what's cool about this formula is that you can compress it down to a 2-minute presentation. Or if you're in a situation like I was, where the, the host of the event, he's like, I'm really tired. I need you to take the stage, and I don't know when I'm going to take you off. And I was up there for 3 hours. I can stretch it out that long. Right? So this formula starts out with your enrolling questions. So you teach the audience how to show up with you.
Yeah.
You're going to introduce yourself, say your name that you might, unless you're getting stopped in airports, you got to say your name from the stage. So say your name, tell why they should listen to you, your credibility, your touch points, and then you start this hero's journey where, again, it's not about chronology. It's about storytelling. If you've ever opened a really good book and it starts, the first chapter is like, she had her toes over the edge of the cliff. Oh my gosh, I've got a hook.
Hmm.
And that's
Yep.
the middle of the story,
Yeah.
right? So we start the story and we stair step down to what I call the bottom of the pool. And all these stair steps are little indicators, ways down to the story. And the bottom of the pool is the transformational moment in your life that may seem mundane, but it was the point where that decision was made. And then as we go down to the bottom of that pool, we're capturing with all of our beautiful vulnerability everyone in the audience who is currently at the bottom of that emotional pool. And it's only because we go down there that we can grab them and bring them with us all the way up. And when we're bringing them with us all the way out, we're going through a piece of content implementation, a piece of content implementation, a piece of content implementation. And those contents are like, the pieces are about 3 to maybe 5, if you can get away with it, chunks. It's like the 3 keys to XYZ or the 5 steps to whatever it is. Break it digestibly
Okay.
down for people,
Yeah.
right? And then we do our call to action, where we're giving away the book, or we're telling people to follow us, or maybe we're pushing them to the back of the room to swipe a credit card. And then we end with the end of the hero's journey, connection with the heart, gratitude, and then you walk off the stage. And that's basically the entire hero's journey. And like I said, you can do it in 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 2 hours. Right now, I'm working with someone who's going to be at WealthCon down, I think in Texas, actually.
Okay.
And they're speaking with Carlos Reyes. I think Ryan Pineda is going to be down there. Lots of amazing speakers. And he's got 25 minutes on stage to create incredible transformation in a room of 1,000 people, all real estate professionals, by the way. And here's the crazy thing. As we're working together, he's like, Marianne, I have so much content. And I don't know what to do. And I said, well, first of all, less is more. But he said this. He said, I think my strongest content has nothing to do with real estate. And as I watched his signature presentation, he's got slide after slide after slide about how to make money in real estate, how to do short-term rentals, how to do buy and hold, all of these things. And he's looking at me and he's saying, Marianne, none of this matters if their mindset isn't in the right place. And so I said, dude, you're at WealthCon. You don't have to talk about real estate, because you're right. If their mind isn't in the right place, then it doesn't matter what system they use. It could be stocks, it could be real estate, it could be Airbnb, it could be whatever you want. But if your mindset's jacked up, then don't count on making money anywhere. And now he's got an incredible presentation. I'm so stoked to see it.
That's awesome. So you were coaching him on his presentation? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask who it is?
Yes, his name is Adrian Hernandez.
Adrian. Okay. It sounds
Yeah,
familiar.
he's a cool dude, man.
Yeah. It's fascinating. But again, it seems so polished. A lot of these guys will get on stage and it's very polished. And so like you can tell some who are just starting out, they haven't actually like polished their pitch or polished the thing. So has he been on stage before, or is this like his first big foray into the selling from stage?
Yeah, so luckily he's been on stage before,
Yeah.
and this is a kind of a bigger stage. So, and it's really neat to be able to work with him because he's higher level. meaning I don't have to teach him a lot. It's just the final. I've got the sculpture behind me. Imagine just sanding out to where you can see the cuticles in the stone.
Yeah.
Those really beautiful details that set you apart. We're not chiseling anything out right now.
Yeah.
My beginning students, we are chiseling, and it's hard and it's strenuous and it feels like it's being chiseled. And now it's just like, okay, I want you to not raise your eyebrows when you say that, or I want you to pivot your weight on your right foot when you say that, or your left foot. And it's those fine-tuned things that really, like you said, creates the polish.
Well, yeah. Okay. So you're getting down to that nitty gritty of a look left when you do this. Make sure you see the whole audience. Don't raise your eyebrows. Well, okay. That's
Maybe
why I buy
the
things
fun.
from people on the stage. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I call it the pressure cooker, bro. When people jump into my stage training, it is the most vulnerable. I mean, what's the number one fear in the world?
Yeah. Public speaking. Yeah.
It's public speaking. So when they jump in to get judged on it
Yeah.
and get critiqued on it, man, you feel vulnerable. But when you're done, you're on top of the world.
That's awesome. Okay. We'll talk more about that in a second. I want to go back to the storytelling. I was listening to your podcast with Jeff Griffin, and just high level, if you haven't heard, you can go check out the podcast, Marianne Hickman show. Is that what you have?
That's
Yeah.
fun.
And so he's a Guinness World Record holder, 2-time Olympic medal holder. Yeah. Like,
Paralympic medalist.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Guy's awesome. So, but I'm listening to the episode. I'm listening to you talk to him, and he mentioned something about we tell ourselves stories all the time, right? And they're a lot of times they're negative. Like I'm not a writer. He, in his specific case, he always told himself, or he told people like they're saying, hey, you should write a book, and he would tell himself, I'm not a writer. I'm not a writer. I'm not a writer. And then he talks about the journey, I guess, of overcoming that and finally telling himself, right, giving yourself permission or doing it. So my question to you is like, how do the stories we tell ourselves, or how can you, and maybe you haven't had to deal with it, but how do you help people tell themselves different stories so that they can then allow themselves to do something?
So yeah, I actually kicked off my business with this years and years and years ago.
Okay.
My very, very first book that I was a part of was all about this. It's the mindset portion of it. That's what Adrian and I are working on with his presentation. So I'm really glad we touched on this, because in we call it storytelling, or our narrative, right? That we say about ourselves. Our most convincing and compelling voice is our own. And a lot of us are so ignorant about what stories we're telling ourselves, and then we wonder why our life is not so awesome all the time. If we get up first thing in the morning and say, oh, I'm tired, oh, I'm exhausted, oh, I'm not a morning person, that's a story, and we are selling ourselves, and we've sold ourselves. We bought this idea, and our brains are just going to do what we tell them to do. So if we are giving our brains like, oh, I'm so tired, oh, my neck hurts, your brain's going to be like, okay, Roger, I know how to do that. We can fulfill that for you. No problem. I always tell people, if imagine for a second, I tried this in an audience. I said, everyone pull out your phones, go to Google and type in, don't show me pictures of kittens. I had the whole audience do it. Like almost broke the router. Like we pull it up and there's 8.2 million search results of pictures of kittens. And I'm like, wait, no. We said, don't show me pictures of kittens. And they're like, yeah, but Google only understands keywords. And then I said, okay, pause. What invented Google? A brain. And a brain can only invent what it knows. So your brain functions the same way Google does, right? Whatever you're feeding it, it's going to grab onto those keywords and create more. So then we start this whole idea of, what is my narrative and do I like it? And in the beginning of my career, I spent probably 20 hours a week doing what I call breakthrough. I'm sure it's a very popular term, but we would examine the stories, especially the ones that originated in childhood, because kids are so powerful. We are powerful as kids. We are powerful sponges. We absorb things we probably shouldn't, and we interpret them really poorly. And then we create these narratives all along our lives. In fact, just today, oh my gosh, just today, I was talking to my husband. Our kids, we're in a blended household. Our kids left for the weekend, and there's a sink full of dishes, right? And I'm doing them because I don't want to have dirty dishes. And I'm laughing with my husband, and I was like, why do you not love the dishes so much? Like, I'm okay doing them. I'm pitching in, right? You're working your ass off. I'm working my ass off. He's like, then he looked at me and he went back in his brain. I could tell he was going back. And he's like, I remember the day that my mom was doing dishes and I asked her if I could help. And he said, my mom said to me, I'm glad you're asking to help because one day you'll hate doing the dishes.
Uh,
I looked at him and my jaw dropped. I'm like, that's why you hate the dishes so much above all other chores. And my 11-year-old son looks at him. He's like, I'm glad your mom told you the truth. It's
yeah.
a funny moment, but it's a small example of a narrative that can be so seemingly innocent. But if we're telling ourselves things that erode us, if we want to make $1 million, for example, there's certain narratives and stories we can't tell ourselves and have that $1 million net worth. It just doesn't work. You can't have both.
Yeah. So taking that same dishes example, one, are you like playing a recording by his bedside now at night? Like, I love
I
dishes. I love
should.
dishes. Like, yeah. How do you break that? Right. And you could take it from dishes or to real estate. And so like, or million, I want to be a millionaire. Like, how do you break those mental barriers or those the stories that you've told yourself years and years and years, that programming? How do you break it?
So there's a system that I was taught and that I've used for the breakthroughs. So I ask myself a series of questions. It's almost like I'm hypnotizing myself because I'm
Yep.
diving into my subconscious and saying, where is my wiring messed up? And I ask myself the question, if I want this thing, and let's just say $1 million this year, I don't know of any real estate agent that would turn that down, right? If I want
Sure.
$1 million
Yeah.
this year, what is the number one reason I don't have it yet? And that will reveal what is called a limiting belief, right?
Yeah.
Usually it boils down to I don't know how, or I'm not smart enough, or whatever it is. And it's never really about the goal, it's about the wiring, it's about your hard drive. And then when I take people through this, I ask them, what is the first memory that pops into your head when you think of the thought? And then you have the limiting belief, you name it. And they'll go back to usually a childhood memory between the ages of 7 and 17, somewhere in there. Sometimes it's outside that window, but generally that's when those belief systems are cemented in. And then they tell the story. And here's what's crazy is that our emotions are over here. The fear, the sadness, the joy, all of these things. And when the emotions take a road trip over here to our ideas, a concept, and they marry together, now suddenly we have a belief, or in other words, an operating system. And every decision we make is summoned from that operating system, for better or worse. So when we go back in time mentally and we say, what was the story you told yourself? And what was the belief that you formed? We talk about the story, we rewrite it. In fact, we change the history a little bit and we say, what would you want to believe instead? If this isn't serving you, what would a better thought have been in that moment? Oh, well, maybe it was just my 6-year-old being a 6-year-old
Mhm.
and they can't be trusted with adult decisions and that's okay. And that 6-year-old just needs to be 6 and have fun. And it doesn't mean anything about me as a person that I tripped and fell. I am capable. And so I'm going to create a new idea and now attach this new idea to a powerful emotion and then create this new operating system that needs nurturing, that needs practice. Because if you're running on the old operating system, that's like a super highway that's really easy by default to go to. This new operating system is like you're cutting through the forest for the first time with a machete. You
Yeah.
got to really nurture this idea, but consciously make decisions from the new operating system and then develop evidence to make it into your next superhighway, your neuro-linguistic reprogramming, Joseph McClendon calls it, and then create new systems. And your results will come with the actions that precipitate from that belief system.
Awesome. I've had someone else on. We were talking to NLP,
Exactly.
yeah, it's fascinating, and that's like I first heard about it Tony Robbins when he was talking about it, and that was part of what he was doing, and so again, the way you broke that down is very helpful. I think it requires a ton of work to do that, right? It's not like it's a you're gonna get fixed in a week or 2 weeks, right? So my wife's therapist, and we have conversations about this all the time in the sense
I
of
bet.
like reprogramming your neural links. So anyway, thank you for breaking it down. I appreciate that.
That's cool.
Because
I'm glad your wife are jamming about that.
yeah.
Mhm.
So millionaire mindset, touch on that, and let's discuss. Are you like coaching on how to have a millionaire mindset?
But I
Are you?
coach on public speaking,
Yeah.
and a lot
Okay.
of
That's
that precipitates down to making a business out of it,
okay.
right? I haven't met very many people that want to jump on stage and not make money doing it.
No, yeah, no, surprising.
It's weird, huh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
So,
would think so. Okay,
yeah.
well, let's talk then about again. I was watching a bunch of your videos, and one of your ads pops up, and it says, "Hey, you want to monetize your message?" And I know there's a lot of real estate professionals that are out. They're making content. They're doing something, right? They're putting themselves out there. How do you go about monetizing your content, either on social media platforms or from the stage? Like what's the breakdown if I were to call you up and say, "Hey, I want to monetize my content, creating some
Yeah.
things." What would you walk me through?
Well, the good news is it's never been easier to do that. And that's hard to kind of wrap your mind around when you're not monetizing yet. And you're like, well, if it's so easy, why aren't I doing it yet? Well, you just don't know the Wi-Fi password, right? It's really easy to get to the
Give
Wi-Fi
us
if
the
you know the
code. Hang on, I
password.
got a pen here. It's like,
PLN.
yeah, yeah.
It's kind of cool. So there's lots of ways to monetize. You can use, AdSense on Google, and you can get paid to make stuff on Instagram, or you can do joint venture partnerships. I coached a guy very, very briefly who is a blue collar worker, and he got paid from painter company who wanted to have him demo their tools, right? So that was one of the ways he got
Mhm.
paid. Real estate agents get paid to sell houses, and you can do that really well. I just talked to Colton Lindsay about that, and he's an incredible real estate guy. You should have him on the show. I'll make an
Yeah,
introduction. Such a cool dude.
awesome.
He sells the real estate. But if you're wanting to monetize your message, there's really an 11-step formula. I always like to break things down into steps for
It's
people.
the best. It's the
So
best.
so the speaker formula basically, and I'll summarize the steps. Essentially, you have to have an area of expertise, something you're really good at. And then you have to have a signature presentation, which is those 10 steps I talked about a moment ago.
Mhm.
And then you've got to find a way to get in front of audiences, get on stages. This example is a digital stage.
Yeah.
Podcasts are digital stages. You can put on physical stages, getting on Instagram, going live, that's a digital stage. So just starting to speak and put your message out there. From there, you can either get paid to appear on stages. Like I've been paid to just come and speak, and I deliver, and then I leave, and then it's a handshake, and then we're done, which is great. But my favorite way to monetize my message is through lead capture, which is basically this. So you jump on stage, you deliver incredible value, and then you give away something, a resource or a guide. I've got a list of, a bunch of podcasts that people like to get on, because all my students want to get on more stages. So I'm like, hey, come get access to my podcast list, or my 10-step formula for developing your signature presentation. Get that book that I wrote on it. It's free. Just take it. And once that is out there, people can download it, they can take it and run with it, and then maybe never see me again, which I'm fine with. But the people that are my right people, they're like, that appetizer was really tasty. Where do I get the main course? How do I spend more time with you? How do I work with you more? And then those people go into what's called the value ladder or your value stack. And they can, take one of these products and maybe work on a high level one-on-one coaching with you. That's what Jimmy Rex has done, turned it into one-on-one coaching in addition to selling houses. And then when you have all of those kinks worked out and you're getting on more stages and you're selling more and you're adding products to your value ladder, you're just at that point patching the holes and saying, okay, where am I weakest? Do I need to convert better? Do I need to get on more stages? Do I need to produce another ebook? Whatever the case is, that's the long answer. I think the short answer to that is have something that you can bring the audience that loves you into, so they can get a greater proximity with you. And the easiest way to do that is through coaching. Just teach what you know.
Let's say you start there. You're going to teach, hey, I have a course. Here's the thing. I'm going to put it up on my high level account, whatever. Everything's set up. Come into my little program. Do you couple that, or do you have like a community built around that? Or do you, like how do you go about growing that community, I guess, at an exponential rate? Is it just more speaking engagements? Is it referrals? Like what's like a tried and true way that you've seen?
And my favorite is organic traffic. I've tried paid traffic a couple of different times, and I'm sure there's a great way to do it. I just haven't found that Wi-Fi password yet. But organic is my favorite because they know, like, and trust me already. So when I'm building my community, what I do is when I'm all over social media, my YouTube channel right now is my biggest followership, if you
Yeah.
will. We've got 43,000 subs on there. Every time I produce a video, in the caption, I'm like, text me if you have a
I know.
question.
Yeah.
right? And I throw my Go High Level Up number up there and they can text me. And then I've got from there, they're brought into I have a free Facebook community where we just all hang out and we just
Yep.
talk and we try to keep it super active, super relevant. Then the next level up, we have a paid community through school. I'm sure you've seen Alex Hormozzi's thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. So I have my school group, it's $9 a month. And people jump in and they get a bunch of value. And I tell them, if you're going to pay $9 a month to be here, you better be making $90 a month by repeating what I do. And then from there, I have a monthly program and they come in and learn speaker training. And from there, there's a one-time pressure cooker experience they can buy with me. And from there, there's the top level, which is one-on-one coaching, where they're spending time on a Zoom call with me and I'm dissecting their signature presentation. We're getting ready for the next event. We're coaching them through the 11 steps without anybody else. It's just focused on us. And so that's my model, is bring them into a place where they can hang out and the right people will climb your value ladder.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I've seen. Like, a lot of the masterminds and that sort of thing that I've joined, it is, I didn't even know some of them that they even had Facebook groups. Like I just went in for the full boat. I'm like, yeah, 20, 30 grand, let's go.
Let's
And then I'm
go.
like, oh
That's what I
wait, you
did.
guys had a whole crew hanging out on Facebook. Like, oh, hey, yeah. So that's funny. But again, they got me with like a ClickFunnels or something. So yeah, again, I like that breakdown because then I can actually visualize that, how you're actually building that and working through that process. It's very helpful. You have been on the stage. You've been speaking for years and years and years, right? So you have a very unique set of skills that you have learned and you're able to teach others.
I feel like Liam Neeson have a very particular set of skills.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. What is that? Taken? Is that? Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah. So I want to know, real estate professionals listening, they want to get out. Maybe they want to like grow from the stage, sell from the stage, get on stage and just grow their audience and grow their business that way. Like, let's talk about that because I know you and I briefly touched on it before we jumped on, but I want to know how you recommend them going about doing that, setting them that up, and then some just tips and strategies. We'll go from there.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So if I were in the real estate agent space, and like I said, this is something that you can R&D for really any industry, whether you're a hairdresser or whether you're a real estate agent or whether you're a homeopathic healer, whatever the case is start, if you want to speak more, speak more. It's really simple. I know it sounds overly simplistic, but when I first started, I actually opened up my home twice a month and just invited people over.
All right.
And I would, even in the beginning, I was like, I need to practice my presentation because my coach told me I needed to practice it. I can't even remember if that was true or not, but I'd say to just have you come over. My first presentation, nobody showed up. Was
this at 12 years old?
Oh, no, that was my first conscious presentation. That was my own stage. Now, when I was 12, there was an audience of other 12-year-olds.
Okay.
That's true. Right. But my first presentation on my own stage.
Got it.
Nobody came.
Yeah. Okay.
Nobody came. When I was 12, that was somebody else's stage. That was still pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I still delivered. And the important thing is I still practiced my presentation and nobody saw me mess up, which was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I was a real estate agent, I would start holding meetings in your home. Just invite people over and say, hey, I interviewed Sean Finnegan on my podcast, and he gave me this rule that he learned from Kevin O'Leary at Shark Tank. He said, never eat alone. So if we're having dinner together and we're just talking, then we talk about what problem you solve. So if you're inviting people over your home, either to listen to you present or even just to break bread together, one of the first things that you ask is a question relevant to the problem that you solve. So for example, if I were to invite a bunch of people over to my home and we were to have dinner together, I would ask, how are you getting more clients right now? How are you growing? Because I know how I'm growing. I'm going through stages. I'm growing my business through stages. I would ask, how are you growing? If I were a real estate agent, am I inviting other real estate agents over because I want to coach them? Or am I inviting all of my clients over? So who's my audience? Who do I want to invite over? And then what do I want to ask them? And relevant to the problem that I want to solve. So if I'm inviting my clients over, I might ask something like, what was the hardest thing about getting into your last home? What was the roughest real estate agent experience that you had? And just chat about it. And then you can invite them over the next week, Every 2 weeks, twice a month is my rule of thumb for starting. Okay. Get on a stage twice a month, create something in your home or in one of your businesses twice a month and invite people over. And you're going to learn a lot.
So in that situation or in that example, how are you presenting? Are you presenting something or are you just asking questions? Because both are valid, but
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like a very easy ease into I'm going to be the focal point, almost the moderator of this discussion. And I'm going to be the one asking the questions. You guys are coming with the content. So when do you transition into like, hey, I'm on stage, or like, even if you're at my house and I have 10 people that showed up, I'm going to present a 20-minute presentation to something. Like, do you transition into that, or do you continue with your twice a week, twice a month, just questions?
If you've never presented before, the Q&A is a really, really easy way to start. And your signature presentation might develop because of what you learn about your audience at that point. And
Okay.
even after you start delivering an official presentation, you might still have these really casual, just meet and greet dinner opportunities, because once you people have gone so far as to like have 3x5 cards at the seats at the table and say, here's the question, how are you getting more customers, or what was your worst experience? And then at the end of the 3x5 card is, would you like to talk about the XYZ? And then you can have a one-on-one conversation with them later about selling whatever it is that you want to sell,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
In the signature presentation, it's the same thing. You eventually have a call to action at the end, whether it's download my book or sign up for a one-on-one or whatever it is. And let's talk about whatever we can do together. How can we play in the sandbox together? And if not, that's okay.
Yeah. So when you talk signature presentation, I can do it in 2 minutes or I can do it in 3 hours.
That's the
And
one.
so, yeah. And so the 2-minute version of that is, hi, I'm Randal McLeaird. I'm in real estate. I'm awesome. I've sold a bunch of houses, flipped all these things. And then your call to action essentially is like a really compressed version of that. Yeah. It's like an elevator pitch almost. And
Yes
then,
and no. I mean, in the 2-minute introduction, the elevator pitch, I was in an audience actually, and I asked the audience, raise your hand if you just love elevators, and nobody raised their hand. And
yeah,
then I said, raise your hand if you love being pitched, and nobody raised your hand. And I was like, then why do we call it the elevator pitch if nobody likes these things?
the
Like,
worst.
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So what we're really doing is answering the question that's in the other person's mind is, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
And Forbes Riley, who I had on the podcast, if you haven't met her, she's an incredible human. She's the pitch queen, over $2 billion in pitches. She talks about how to make the introduction, or in other words, this elevator pitch, actually something that people want to listen to. And we want to answer the question, what's in it for me?
Yeah. So
Right.
yeah. How do you do that in 2 minutes? The whiff
So
'em
it's,
and the bluff, like I've heard these things, right? So how do you do it in 2 minutes?
yeah. Yeah. And this is something we go with our students. This is really cool. And I've interviewed Hope Zavara on this as well. So the elevator pitch, and for lack of a better word, we need to coin a better term for it. So if anyone has any ideas, throw it in the comments. This elevator pitch is, who are you? Hey, my name's Marianne. And then what do you help people with? I help this, and then you fill in the blank of the certain demographic, right? And so many people, I'm sure you've seen this, so many people are afraid to narrow down their demographic because they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose people.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, if people don't know who you're talking to, if you think you're talking to everybody, nobody can hear you.
Yeah.
So you fill in your demographic, right? My name is Marianne Hickman. I help entrepreneurs who, and then you describe their bottom of the pool. What do these, in my case, what do entrepreneurs struggle with? What do they complain to their friends about? And I don't use upper level coach speak. I don't describe the palm trees at the top of the pool. I don't say, I help entrepreneurs who want to get more followers. I have a hard time doing it wrong. Instead, I say, I help entrepreneurs who are struggling to grow their business because they feel invisible. And I use the words that my clients use when they complain to their spouses, right? And then I fill in the rest by saying bye. So it's, I help blank, my demographic, who struggle with blank by, and then what I do. So
Yeah.
I help entrepreneurs who want to grow their business but can't because they feel invisible, by getting them on stage.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So as an entrepreneur, now you know, oh, what does Marianne have something for me or not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. So you've got your coaching. You want to talk about this? Because I'm curious myself. Like,
Absolutely.
all right. So what is coaching with Marianne? What does it involve and cost? And what am I What am I getting other than just a cool hangout? Hey, let's go. Let's chat.
This is very cool, by the way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we meet every Wednesday night, and I have to say I have the coolest group in the world. I really do. There's people in this group. They've been hanging with me, some of them for decades from the very beginning when I sucked at what I did. Like my Instagram post today is like me 10 years ago, and it's so cringe, but people stuck with me anyway, and I'm so grateful.
Yeah, but you started and you did it. You put yourself
Started
out there. Yeah.
started my cute little pixie cut and my stumbling words. It was great. So we hang out every Wednesday night, and those people in that group pay $147 a month to hang out. And what we do is we go through these 11 steps of how to make money with your signature keynote presentation. So, for example, last night we talked about your entire value ladder and how you don't need to have a completely built out value ladder to start making money and selling. You can just sell coaching, and that can be the item in your value ladder, right?
Yeah.
So, Wednesday nights we meet, we talk about developing your signature presentation. We usually will take audience polls and say, which step were you struggling with? Let's work on that one next. And if we don't get feedback, then we generally go to the next step chronologically, or we do a pressure cooker experience and we take a extended time, 2 hours together, and dissect. We put someone on stage, we dissect their presentation. And oh boy, is that fun, but it's so hard for some people.
Yeah.
And then, that's my core of what I do. And then there are people that work with me one-on-one, like Adrienne and Renee that have worked with me one-on-one. And we meet outside of that once a week for an hour and really drill down and get focused on what we're doing. I got to tell you about Renee, because oh my gosh, this woman is an incredible human being. She is a natural healer based out of California, who was once a nurse, very well versed in Western medicine, but understands enough about it to know what's dangerous about it. But she didn't know how to build a business. So when we got started, we wrote her ebook, and we got her free giveaway of that ebook up on a link. And then she started putting it out there. Now, I have to say this about Renee, and she would agree with me that technology, historically, her story was that it was not her strongest suit. And she's gradually learning more about it. But she doesn't have the most followers on TikTok. She doesn't have the most followers on Instagram, but she's dang good at what she does. And so she got started and started being willing to talk about it. She created a community modeled after mine. And I said, copy what I do, go make your own. And she had another community owner invite her onto his podcast, not just once, but a monthly podcast. So she's in front of hundreds of people, thousands of people every single month. And she's talking about her book. And then within this, I think it was 12 weeks we worked together, she's generated about $5,000 in revenue from never having a business before.
Yeah.
And she's like, these clients keep feeding. And it's like, she's just told me this week was our last meeting. She's like, my schedule is so full, I can't keep up. And I was like, it's time to raise your prices.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. This is, yeah, that's what I was wondering on the pricing side of things. So she's been in and she's growing her business. Is she like giving Eastern, like, massage? Is it, I don't, is it Reiki? Is it something? What is she?
No, it's actually a little bit more, less woo-woo sounding.
Okay. Okay.
She
I mean,
understands all this energy stuff, but she runs a farm out in
Okay.
California, and she's raised livestock and animals. But her coolest part of her story, and I got to tell you this because this is how we met. When I married my husband, he was house hacking. So he bought the house and then rented out all the rooms, and he lived for free, right?
Yeah.
One of the guys it's funny how it all comes back to real estate. One of the guys that was living there, his name was Mason. And when I met Mason, I could tell that he was not the most socially well-versed human in all the world when I met him. But he was a cool guy, the kindest, most beautiful heart. And it was just a fleeting thing. He was my husband's roommate. Now, my husband kicked all the roommates out because he'd married me and brought in my 5 kids, filled up all the rooms. But Mason was so sweet. He stuck around, and he's like, I want to learn as much from you guys as I can. So he stayed in our universe. Now, Renee is actually Mason's mom. And he said, Marianne, you have to meet my mom. And when I met her, she told me this story. She said, Marianne, when Mason was 15 years old, he was diagnosed with autism. He was nonverbal autistic. At 15, he couldn't string words together. And my jaw dropped. I was like, you're kidding me. Because I know this guy. I've talked to him. And Renee really got down and dirty with what was making him sick. Really decided, her narrative said that autism doesn't have to be permanent. Autism is curable. And she dug in her heels and found out how to cure him using food. She found out which foods were, she found out which foods were toxic to him. She had foods imported into the San Diego ports that were fresh from other countries, and she had to go there every day to pick up the food that was clean. She detoxed his body of parasites and hard metals. By the way, if you talk to her, she'll tell you that 99% of us have parasites. I'm about to go get myself tested. In fact, Brian Pineda just talked about this on his Instagram. So she actually uses, what the good stuff of Eastern medicine. She'll send you a parasite test kit. You can get a blood draw. She'll test what parasites are there, because if you order a $20 kit from Amazon, it's just going to test for one. She tests for the whole panel, and then how to kill them, and then how to expel them, and how it heals your body. She's like, crooked teeth is parasites, acne is parasites, fatigue is parasites, insomnia is parasites. Like, we're all infected and we didn't even know, and no one's catching it in our world because they don't have a test for it. They're always like, oh, well, let me just prescribe this prescription that causes more of this. Anyway, I could go on and on.
No. I don't mean to cut you off. I heard something the other day. It was like, I stopped eating all this processed food, just chicken and steamed broccoli, and it cured up my acne and did this and that, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a version of that, but like even more intense. And so, yeah, that's wild too. Just that story is wild. So now he's clearly verbal. He's talking to you, and
oh, dude, the guy learned Latin.
Yeah.
He speaks like 5 different languages. He's the master electrician up in Salt Lake. Like, he's so brilliant. And now, get this, he's starting a speaker journey of his own.
No, right. Yeah,
right?
He's got a story.
I got goosebumps. Like, going from autistic nonverbal to public speaker. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's amazing. Dude. Again, awesome journey.
You got me all lit up. I could go on.
Yeah, no. Hey, look, Marianne, I appreciate you jumping on. It's been a really good conversation. I am always geeking out on how people are building their communities. I started with that before we even got on. I was like, these guys, I've seen them, the meteoric rise they've had just in their businesses. So I know how powerful it is. It's something that I've dabbled with, and so I'm definitely going to talk to you more about it.
Yeah, let's jam.
Yeah. So again, I really appreciate you jumping on. If you're listening to this and you are afraid of public speaking, or you want to jump on a stage, definitely look up Marianne. She's got what was the link that you have? You've got,
oh yeah, it's mariannehickman.com/free gift. I just got my book for all the 10 steps we talked about here. It's fleshed out, and you can download it and get your signature presentation going.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, again, I appreciate it. Thanks for jumping on, sharing your knowledge. Always.
Thank you
cool.
so much for having me. It was an honor.
All right. You guys, catch you on the next episode.
Did you know that 80% of the agents we speak with got into real estate in order to gain passive income so they could obtain financial freedom and become work optional? If you want to stay up to date, the best way is to make sure you're subscribed. So if you haven't done that, go ahead and do it now. We'll catch you on the next episode.